Okay, I just got off the river with Jordan. How do I even say your last name?
Knigge.
Yep. Okay.
In the flesh.
K-N-I-G-G-E.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
With 168.
168 Fishing and Addicted Guides.
Yep, and Addicted Guides, Addicted Fishing. Me and the boys do everything we can to keep that thing going and bring more content and more fishing entertainment and education to all you anglers out there.
For sure. And I know you yourself do a lot of the tutorials and a lot of the footage, and it's some great stuff. You're good on the camera. I enjoy it, and definitely got a big following, a lot of subscribers. So Addicted Fishing. I just wanted to talk real quick with you, Jordan, about we had a nice little half day on the river. For me, one of my best days on the river here this winter. Just really nice getting out and quickly getting into some fish and some different runs.
We didn't have to work too hard at it.
No,
we
didn't have to work really hard at all. And so I think we were pretty much fishing worms on jig heads the whole time, which was a lot of fun.
Yep.
I love doing that. Worm colors. What do you see day over day or season over season for color changes? Is it something that you can kind of throw any old worm in there and it'll work, or do you see specifics with the colors?
I do see specifics, but the minute that I really commit and say there are extreme specifics to it, I always use the joke, what fish told you that? But, and I think certain colors you have to have in your box and you have to have confidence in because they work so well. And there's other colors that you can't overlook. You know what I mean? Like today, I think a lot of our success came on a worm that has, for me, been the best worm all year. So, that being said, not every color works. But theoretically, every color could work. But I have the most confidence in the one that has been working. And being that so, it gets fished, it gets put in the right spots, and it basically gets the chance to get eaten by a fish. More so than any other color. To say if I had a hankering for one color, that's my color, the red haze, addicted worm, and all I fished was red haze, it would still catch fish. But I don't think it would outfish the other color that I can see producing fish every single day, given the circumstance and the water clarity.
Okay, so now when you mentioned the worm that we were fishing today, which particular one? Because we got fish, I think, on 2 or 3 different colors.
Right, exactly. So there's days when I feel like the worm fishing in itself, it's something that it's not something I've done forever. It's something I was turned on 2 years ago by my buddies at Addicted, who are, Marlon in particular, who's such a prolific worm fisherman. And it's something that I've taken with a grain of salt because of that. I haven't gotten stuck in certain ways. And like a day like today or a season like this one where I see fish really, this very last winter of 2018 and 19, I went almost like a month and a half of the latter part of the season without touching a fish on the worm, and I was fishing them every day. You know what I mean? Like very seldom I was getting them on the worms, and where this year for the last month and a half, I have fished nothing but, like today we fished 2 worm rods.
Yeah.
And it's just, I've keyed, and I don't know if it's what those fish are feeding on, if it's the amount of, say, like lamprey or something that's present in the river system, but there are certain times and there's certain years, and you find it out by catching the fish on it, not by just automatically knowing by water temperature or river levels. The worm's either going to work or it's not, and when it's working, it's great. It's just like a bead. If a bead's working, you better put a bead on your line and quit messing around with the worm.
Yeah.
But all the colors work, but having that shades, like today we got one on the blue tail, pearl body.
Yep.
We got one on a red haze blacktail, and we got one on a charisse worm blacktail. So literally the full spectrum. Almost,
yeah.
And the pink, and the pinks and reds. We could have gone to a chartreuse worm. We could have went to a chartreuse. I mean, something might have changed that. But effectively fishing them and having confidence in one of 3 colors that you can quickly change to makes them that much more effective, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so it was really cool. I do love the Addicted Steelhead worms, and I've caught a lot on that red pearl, I think, with a white tail or whatever.
Yep.
But I hadn't fished that specific color that I was fishing today until today, and I hadn't seen anyone else fishing the red haze with the black tail or the cerise with the blacktail. All 3 of them worked. So it's cool to now all of a sudden have confidence in those 3 colors. Would you say it's just maybe having a couple options per trip?
Yeah, and having the balls to try them.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that's just it. Taking the time to change your presentation is the biggest thing. When I started fishing this week, I was fishing shorter worms. I was cutting off most of the 6-inch worm and fishing about a 4.5 to 3.5 inch worm.
Yep.
Where today we went bigger on both profiles and caught the same fish. So, having the wherewithal to switch up your presentation when need be, and then having a basis of color tones through the spectrum is what really makes it more of an elevated fishing. If you're going to be fishing that kind of presentation, not just throwing your same worm, the one Berkeley worm that's in your box that you've had in there for months on years, that never get fished because you don't have any confidence in them. So,
So on a certain day, like today, for instance, light pressure on the water, as far as fishing wise, some nice rain on the water, stable water conditions, fairly stable weather. Like the conditions were just right for a fish to bite. And so if that's kind of the case and they are on a good bite, how much credence would you put to one specific technique rather than just getting it in front of a fish?
That's a huge question, and I think it's going to more go towards what kind of water you're fishing. Like today, all the spots we were finding these fish, the river's low for this time of year. Every river is low and clear for this time of year. And the water we were fishing was extremely stagnant, very slow, less than a walking speed. And so fishing a suspended presentation to where that worm can get a long time in front of that fish and, come to that fish from a distance rather than being dragged down the bottom where it's going to be going over and under structure and the fish can't visually see that presentation as well. That's what's going to more change how you're trying to get that presentation down to them. A bead's not going to work in that stagnant water unless fish suspended, which I don't prefer much. I like a bead to be rolling down the bottom. A jig is we could use jigs all day, of course, but having something that can fish the style of water that you're fishing, the slow water, is more so going to be how I'm going to target it. It's a perfect day for worms today. That's really what it came down to. Good sky color, good water clarity, go with the tones that are screaming at you and present them in front of the fish how they should be slowly from a float, not off the bottom or bobber dogging or drift fishing,
Totally. So it might not be that they're that much more keyed in on a worm necessarily,
right,
but it was presenting very nicely in front of them. So
by switching to float fishing, whether it was fixed or slide,
as opposed to dragging it down the river. So another funny thing that happened is I think, had already turned the motor on. I already had my worm in the boat and everything, and you were basically trolling your pink worm and you got bit. What do you think happened there?
I think that fish really wanted to eat that worm.
That's fair to say.
Yeah, I think that that worm wiggling around back there in the same style as a plug or say a fly, and it was down in the strike zone at about 10-12 feet. I pulled away, pulling that worm from the strike zone towards the surface, and just that reaction and that flighty presentation with that worm trying to swim away must have keyed in on that fish's aggressive nature and made it want to chase it down and eat it, which a lot of times we only see in, say, coho and different species like salmon, where they are very aggressive hunters, where steelhead tend to just hang out and survive and live in the river systems. But just having that much more of a presentation that was aggressive and predator and prey, basically, and that fish keyed in on it. And I've seen that happen a lot this season where we hook fish as we start to reel in. And I don't know if there's a way we could possibly emulate that presentation all the time. Make and whether it's with a diver or something, but that was awesome. He just got a bite. Bobber goes down. I tried to pull the boat back up to where he had just gotten that bite, and I turned around and he rod in my hand is tugging, and there he was in a 13-foot deep hole. Yeah,
that's crazy. Fishing. And we were just fishing that water, kind of playing around. It was cool to see that fish in slower water on the side with boulders. Like you said, less than walking speed. And then that particular one was in a very deep seam that we were fishing deeper. Now, if you were, obviously there's no way to know unless you have eyes on the fish, but how much do you think in this later season, being that it's late March, how much do you think fish are willing to move for a bait here?
I think they're willing to move an incredible distance, especially when we're speaking about late March, early April fisheries where in an area like where we're at, we get a late run of steelhead, like a spring run basically, and it's one of the more fabled runs. But in most places that is the case, where you get that spring run of fish in all rivers in the Northwest. But you also have the opportunity to get downriver steelhead, which are perfectly ethical to fish.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily target them, but they're just a bycatch throughout the day. But these fish are rebriding, they're refeeding, they're fattening back up, and they're heading back down towards the ocean from their spawning gravel. So these fish are extremely aggressive.
Yeah.
They'll chase almost anything. And if you have bait on, you'll almost always catch one. And that is because they're trying to replenish. They're not a salmon. That's why these wild steelhead are so protected, is because they're repeat spawners. I think some rivers, like, some of the coastal rivers in Oregon have done studies, and there's certain fish that they've tagged 7 times. It's come back 7 years consecutive to spawn. And that being the case, those fish are very viable and a very fun fish to catch. Which gives those aggressive presentations and those more wacky presentations more validity during this time of year, because there's fish that really are trying to feed.
Yeah. And in general, the late, fresh fish are very aggressive as well, of course. So moving into one subject that you've done a lot of tutorials on, and that is a very fun technique for aggressive steelhead spinner fishing. How about colors there? How much is it getting in front of the right fish in the right way, or do you put much stock in colors?
I truly am a big believer that color does not matter at all.
At all.
And,
really?
And I have my preferences. I have my favorite spinners, but my spinner box looks just like this. It's black, blue, pink, and yellow, and green. And not a whole lot of variation. Maybe some bronze as far as blades and stuff in there, but just one of each color of the rainbow, one of each shade, and you're gonna match that to the kind of water conditions. Again, there's somebody out there that likes fishing a yellow spinner when the water's super clear. They think it's the best.
Yeah.
And there's some rivers that the chartreuse spinner is the best, and they're clear water. You know what I mean?
Okay,
not
so you just
streams.
Contradicted yourself. There's some rivers where a chartreuse,
Well, I mean, so exactly.
I guess what
I
I
am
hear
a fishing guide, so I'll contradict myself.
Well, I guess what I hear you saying is that it doesn't matter as much as one would attribute to it, maybe like a jig or a worm and stuff, but you still have your favorites.
Yep, I have my favorites just out of confidence and out of fish coming.
Which is good.
I've said this for years, dude. I want to start this page or this YouTube channel where I take a blue spinner, like the Chronicles of the Blue Fox, to fish a blue spinner and try to catch every species in the world on it, because I seriously think it can be done on a blue fox.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I could probably catch over 100 species throughout the world on a blue fox. It's just everything that a fish it's everything a fish knows to eat something that looks like that.
Totally.
That's something that's helpless and that's vibrating and it's intrusive. And so, that being said, I'll contradict myself on water conditions and clarity and so on, but, you're not going to go wrong having your basis of colors.
Yeah.
But I don't think it limits you. I think if the fish is going to follow a spinner down, it's not because it's black or because it's blue or because it's yellow or pink. It's because it's there,
Totally. So what about, would you have confidence to say summer fishing, it's getting pretty low and clear, to throw something clowny out there?
I think it works great. Yeah, really? I think summers like those bright colors. They're very aggressive.
Even upriver?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say. And again, the summertime, a summer steelhead chasing a spinner, more so than a winter or something has a lot more turbidity in water, and you're going to match your spinner color to the sky color and the clarity of the river. I'm not going to fish a black spinner in dark black chocolate brown water, or I might. It just depends on that day. If I open my box and my spinners are like, one's looks super dull, one's kind of just vibrant and bright and looking at me, and one's right there in between, I'm going to go with the vibrant bright one so that the fish can see it. Yeah. But in summer's terms, when you have warm water and you have overly aggressive steelhead, I've heard tell of people catching a summer steelhead on a cigarette butt, soaked in egg juice. You know what I mean? And they're just aggressive fish. So I'd say even less in the summertime. I attribute a different color to catch. It's a spinner.
For sure.
It's gonna, if it's an aggressive fish, it'll swim 30 feet to eat it. You know, the fish that you want as a beginner or any angler, you want those easy ones. You know.
Oh, totally. So, spinner fishing for summer steelhead, is that something that you're going to target a lot of the water with it, or are you fishing mostly fast, riffly stuff? What's your program for spinner fishing?
You know, summertime, I try to stick to the more oxygenated, fast water, stuff that's moving, stuff that has some sort of flow to it and gets oxygen through those fish's gills. But I change my spinner for deep water. I fish a lot of different spinners, and that's something that people can see on those Addicted Lives on YouTube, on that Addicted Fishing page, and in the tutorials on the same channel. I change spinners given the water. I might fish a bullet body spinner, or like a torpedo body spinner in slower water so that it cuts through the water better, it sinks down faster, it gets to the bottom. Is where if I'm fishing a 6-inch deep riffle, I'm going to go with a bell body spinner because it has a lot of body mass and a lot of volume that gets caught up in those currents and doesn't let it hit the bottom. I'm going to keep snagging if that's the case. If I go to a thinner diameter spinner, I have to whip across the fish's face too fast. And with a bell body, it's going to float more. It's going to stay behind those rocks longer without hitting bottom. And I can fish that fast water with that spinner. So that's more of the case for summer steel, like where I'm looking for them. You can catch them everywhere. But changing your tactics to effectively get to a fish, sometimes in a big deep hole, or even a shallow fast water riffle, I'll use a 1/2-ounce spinner. Because you need to get down at a certain point, and it's more directory. Like, you know, I want to fish this 6-inch pocket that a number 4 blue fox isn't going to get down to because it has too much. There's too much water volume moving that spinner up towards the surface. Those royals and those boils. So I'm going to switch to a heavy one or a torpedo body. But if I'm fishing some sort of rapid or fast water, I'm going to go to that bell body so that I can slow that presentation down in front of those fish. Which obviously in a slow hole you don't need to slow anything down.
Yeah.
You just have to get it in front of them.
Now, as we're talking summer steelhead here, because that's what we're kind of gearing up for, and getting ready for, what are your, if you had one go-to tactic for summer steelhead throughout any of the tributary rivers, what would you do?
I'd throw spinners.
Really?
Yep.
Not bait?
Not particularly. Just because I'm not one who really loves to fish a lot of bait. You know, it's a pain in the butt, and if in fact we can catch the same amount of fish fishing artificials, it's even better in my opinion, because it's that much easier and more effective and quick, and your effectiveness of fishing constantly is that much better. You know, you're not guessing, and you're not wondering if you have bait on if that bobber went down halfway through your 200-yard drift, you know. But I like fishing any artificial for any kind of steelhead if possible, because it's just that much more efficient. You know, you're fishing constantly. But I would say I like to throw spinners for summer steelhead. A lot of the aggressive ones will always eat it. You know, odds are if you're in front of a summer steelhead, in my opinion, that doesn't bite, a spinner and or whatever one of 3 other presentations might be, that fish has either one already been spooked too much, which I don't think is a huge factor, or 2, it's been hooked somewhere somehow. You know, I notice a lot of summer steelhead in like some of the bigger, clearer rivers in Southwest Washington, where I'll pull over, I'll go across the pot of 5 steelhead. I'll watch the spinner swing in front of them. The first fish in line will follow the spinner all the way to the boat and hit the spinner within 15 feet of the guy's rod tip. And then we'll fight, you know, land, kill that fish, pull back up on that pot of fish, and literally smack them in the nose with every presentation in the boat. And then I eventually, before I leave, will go over and look at the fish and spook them. And that one has a corky hanging out of its mouth. That one you can see a piece of skin. And this one's got a piece of flesh on its nose flopping up and down. Every one of those fish has been hooked.
Wow.
Almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or it's just not an aggressive biting fish.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be able to fool them very well. But I notice a lot for the lower trib summer steelhead, which is pretty much where there's most summer steelhead.
Yeah.
If you can't get a fish to bite, or you can't get a normal steelhead presentation in front of that fish and not hook it, that fish has already been affected in some way, shape, or form. You know. So
you're not going to spend a ton of time trying to convince a summer steelhead?
Not a ton. Not unless I find them in a pool where they're way up on a tributary, say, and there is the opportunity to not, where that's the only fish you're going to find is in that area.
Yeah.
If I'm fishing a big river, if I'm fishing most of these areas where there are summer steelhead, I'm going to cover a lot of water and maybe even give those fish rests and go back to them and possibly convince them to bite. But it might be a month later that those fish turn back on. We all know that late October time, summer steelheading, where all those fish that have been around for a while get that little fresh rain and they turn back on. But odds are a lot of those fish that you catch that time of year have already been hooked in some way, shape, or form. And if you examine them enough, you can see it. Yeah.
Interesting. 3 colors for summer steelhead. Doesn't matter if it's a jig, worm, bait,
right.
Nothing. What is it?
Blue spinner, red jig.
Nope, not a specific.
Oh, okay.
Just the color.
All right. Blue, red, and chartreuse.
Okay.
I would say.
Blue, red, and chartreuse.
Which that can be contradicted by an orange corky all day long, but
of course, but everyone has their favorites.
Yeah. That's really what I would. That spectrum, blue, red, and an abstract pink or chartreuse, right? Something that is completely flamboyant, for those fish.
Yeah. Summer steelhead scents?
I think the scent is huge. I definitely, contradicting what I said earlier, I use a lot of bait in the summertime, a lot of eggs, a lot of prawn, things of that sort. But I do like a lot of scent, any kind of addicted blend scent, any anise. It seems to me that summer steelhead are big time shrimp eaters. It's throughout their lifespan they must eat a lot of shrimp because they really key in on the shrimp sense.
Yep. And
the bait itself, any kind of coon shrimp or sand shrimp, anything of that regard, they must feed on a lot of that out in the ocean. Scent's the biggest and easiest thing to apply to your fishing repertoire. That's going to make you a better angler.
Yeah.
That's going to, not a better angler, but going to catch more fish.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing that you can put on your line or do for your presentation. That does help you catch a fish, for sure.
Do you do it on spinners?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I've even seen people put prawn on a spinner.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea.
Absolutely.
Big hook. Now we're getting out there.
No, for sure. I actually had a guide tell me that.
Big number 6 spinners and a prawn.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to say who and where, but he told me that was one of his little secret deals, is put a coon shrimp on the back, especially if they're like a little less aggressive than they are most days.
Yeah, I've saw it done. I was with a guy this last fall fishing for fun for some chum, and he was fishing big old chunks of prawn on the back of a spinner.
Oh, wow.
It was a neat idea.
Yeah.
So...
Well, good stuff. I appreciate talking with you and fishing with you today.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. We got some cool video that I'm going to put on the Salmon Trout Steelheader YouTube. And thanks for coming on the podcast, Jordan.
Thank you very much.
Love to have you on here again, and we'll talk about some specifics. But
yep, we'll get the old man out here with us and go catch some summer steelhead next.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, guys, for listening. And then, again, Jordan, where can they find you?
Yep, you can find me on Facebook. On Facebook Messenger, on Instagram, 168 Fishing, or on Facebook, Jordan Knigge, or anywhere on the Addicted page. You can email addicted.fishing and get in contact with any one of our guides or myself. And I'll be booking summer steelhead trips from mid-May all the way through to September here very soon. We'll start filling that schedule up once we get over this craziness of this coronavirus and everything. But mid-May on, I'll be booking summer steelhead trips in the raft and the jet boat. So we can accommodate anybody.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'll have to get you booked up for one of those.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Jordan.
Yep. Thank you, Lucas. We'll talk to you later, bud.
Bye.
We'll talk to you later, bud.
Bye.
We'll talk to you later.